Hello, everyone. My name is Dr. Cece, and today I am going to discuss characteristics of celebrity pastors. I had the opportunity to research and study this topic as a part of my dissertation on celebrity pastors and designer fashion representations. And so today I am sharing with you some of the things that I learned, and not to say that every pastor who has this characteristics is defined as a celebrity pastor, but I will say that the majority that have these characteristics, we're seeing a trend here and some similarities. Right off the jump, the idea of a celebrity pastor is a bit of a complex and oftentimes some point controversial subject or combination of terms. But today, we're going to talk about some of those characteristics, what this looks like in the here and now. And so, number one is that the majority of celebrity pastors, of course, lead some form of megachurch or some form of large, massive ministry. Now, a megachurch is defined in research as usually more than 2,000 attendees, weekly attendees. And so that number, it may be different depending on organization, but a second characteristic and another aspect that really characterizes them is, of course, a large media presence and social media following. So, when I talk about media, I'm not just talking about social media, we're talking about a media footprint, which can be various forms of media introduced. So, many of them were even over the past few years or past decades, they were using and incorporating media into their ministry a while ago. Whether it was VHS, CDs, even 8 tracks, or maybe even some form of publications, likely a combination of them, radio, but they were using this to really reach the masses. And so now with social media, we see that influence and that ability to reach more people grow even more. And so many of them do have a large social media presence. Of course, as we look at more younger pastors, of course, they weren't necessarily using the more age forms of media, but they really came across and came on board with the introduction of social media. And so the interesting thing is that with celebrity pastors, it can be a little tricky to nail down, because just because you have a large social media following, or even what we call maybe a smaller designation, which would be more of a micro influencer, a number of followers, which is anything probably around 10 to 20,000, that doesn't mean that you're not influential or that you're not described as a celebrity pastor. But usually, on average, they have hundreds of thousands, even millions of followers. And that usually gives them the designation of celebrity pastor. Now, that leads me to my next characteristic, and that is an affiliation with celebrities or notable people in other areas of society and culture. And so, whether that is music or acting or politics, these pastors not only have an affiliation, they usually have some form of a relationship. And so, not only is the pastor being covered in media with their ministry, they may even be seen in tabloids or blogs or on social media sites that actually follow celebrities, and they're seeing this, and then the pastor is also profiled. Not to mention, another characteristic is that the pastor usually is discussing really either applicable ideas or notions in society, or sometimes taboo subjects. They're doing some things that are not really the norm. They're usually doing things outside of the norm. And so, we've seen pastors really kind of do like stage, things on the stage, and, have these demonstrations that go viral. And yeah, they're doing some things that some may consider over the top, but again, not all. For the most part, though, they do have some kind of ability to influence or some kind of ability to discuss subjects in society that and then to go viral for it, because they do have these large followings that other pastors may not have. That leads me to another characteristic, which is branding initiatives. So a lot of them, and strategic marketing initiatives with that too. Several of them have already had this way of packaging their ministry that's actually very, not only professional, but it's actually top tier, to the point where it's on par with other brands, if we talk about even corporate brands. And so they've been able to incorporate maybe apparel and all of these other aspects of branding into their ministry. And it usually goes over very well to the point where people want to wear it and be a part of it. And so another aspect, multiple business endeavors. A lot of these pastors are not just in ministry. A lot of them are writing books. They have other businesses. They are consultants. They're doing all kinds of other things. And I don't want to say all kinds, but they're doing some other aspects of business to where it's not just about the ministry. And so that brings in the other streams of income. The money is a whole nother part. And so that would also characterize when we talk about celebrity pastors, they're usually influential in other aspects of society as well. And so another aspect as well, their spouses may also, and not just may, but their spouses are usually also involved in the ministry, and they're also very visible, which also means that they can be just as scrutinized or have the lens placed on them just as much as their spouse, pastor spouse. Now, I will add this part too. The majority of celebrity pastors are characterized as male. Gender does play a role in a lot of times, but it is not the only factor. And that does not mean that women are not also characterized as celebrity pastors. A lot of times when a pastor is profiled in media, that can be male or they can be male or female. And so the spouse can be in the forefront as well. And so these are just a few characteristics. I hope they helped, especially as we hear that term more pronounced and shared a lot more in media, which a lot more pastors are getting covered in mainstream media, which also shows you too the influence of some of these pastors beyond just church. And so again, my name is Dr. CC. Thank you so much for joining me, and hopefully I'll see you for the next video. Bye.